some weight loss community? Well, we've got a Facebook group. So we've created this group to really give you some inspiration, motivation, perhaps some useful tips, maybe something that will make a difference in your life, that will put you in the direction that you want to go in terms of your fitness and weight management or weight loss.
That's right.
Or someone might actually want to gain weight. So,
Right? It's weight management, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Maybe it's not even about weight. Maybe it's just about they just want to feel better.
Exactly. I think if you're feeling really happy and that, then you're probably naturally going to fall into a healthy weight range. And that's what our topic is today, isn't it really? It's about depression and weight.
Yeah, you know what? I remember, wasn't it last week we were talking about arthritis, degenerative arthritis and pain, and we started talking about the topic, and all of a sudden we started talking about depression, and that's how it led us into this topic, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And the thing is that they're all obviously connected, because if you're suffering from pain, you're likely to, you could get depression as a result of having pain. I've certainly been in that place before. But, then if you're not exercising and you're depressed and you're in pain, you can easily start to gain weight. And in fact, it has a big factor on weight gain, which you're going to share some information today, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about it and what people could do to help themselves with those sorts of things as well. That's right.
One of the things that I want to share is, let's go here. We're going to play a little video on depression. This comes from WebMD, and so I want to share this with people. So this one just talks about the basics of depression, and if you can see on the screen, just say there's no audio to this one except for the music. And now what I want to do, I want to move to another video that they have. It's eating well with depression, and I think this one is actually probably more important.
The way you feel about a lot of things, including eating. But the right diet can actually help your mood, so it's important to eat well. Eat your veggies. They lower your chances of feeling depressed. Why is this? It might be because of polyphenol. This micronutrient is found in both fruits and vegetables. It helps you think, and research shows it may be good for your mental health. Also found in fruits and veggies is vitamin C. It can help fight depression by keeping levels of the hormone cortisol in check. Your body can make too much of it when you're stressed. Some rich sources are grapefruit, kiwi, broccoli, and red and green peppers. Speaking of green, one of the oldest beverages on the planet, green tea, curbs symptoms of depression. But you might need to drink it regularly to get the effects. So what foods should you avoid? You guessed it, junk food. Also processed meat, fried foods, refined cereals, and high-fat dairy products. One study showed that women who ate diets high in refined sugars and starches were more likely to have depression because of the way these foods affect hormone levels, which can lead to anxiety and irritability. So keep track of what you eat. The food you choose could help you live a happier life with depression.
No, isn't that so true, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, it is so true, isn't it? I mean, just watching that video and seeing the bit where they were talking about eating sugars, I can imagine if you're having like those sugary cereals and eating lots of sugar foods, you're really spiking your glycemic index and your insulin levels, and that, as I said, affects your hormones, which can result in or contribute to the feelings of depression and make it worse. So food, wow, it's just a massive Well, obviously it makes sense, but it's just a massive factor in mood, isn't it?
Katie, as we look at it, I'm going to share my story because
Okay,
I think it's so important. Last week I shared with people that I was in a lot of pain when I got on my motorcycle wreck. I was on a lot of painkillers. They had me on hydrocodone. They had me on Percocet. I was on Darvocet. And, I was taking that stuff all the time, and it was just making me paranoid, and I didn't want to leave my house. I even started ordering my groceries to come have them delivered to my house because I didn't want to leave. And the more I became secluded, the more I kind of sat back and I put my sunglasses on and I just sat at home and I wasn't in the world anymore. I was just here.
How depressed were you feeling, Kurt?
I look back at it now and I think I went into really I was probably in pretty major depression.
Yeah. It's a really personal question to ask. Did you feel to the point where you didn't want to be here anymore?
Yeah, there was a couple of days.
And obviously, did you have insight into the situation? I mean, your depression obviously was a direct result of your accident. So sometimes I guess others can have depression. They may not have had an accident. There's many reasons, I guess, why. But for you, it was because of your motorcycle accident. Did you then think at that time, gee, that I'm in a really bad place and I need to figure out how to get out of here?
I'll be honest with you, Katie. I look back at it now and I recognize the fact that I had depression. But during the time, most of us guys, we kind of stay to ourselves and we don't, no, I didn't admit I had depression. Come on.
No.
I'm a guy. I'm tough.
Right.
Well,
then what were the steps that you started taking to try and make the situation better? Like, did you seek help from someone else? Did you have people helping you, like, psychologists or health professionals, or were you taking on board specific activities or strategies yourself to?
Yeah, good question. You've gotten to know me over the last 5 or 6 years, and you know the answer to that question. No, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't mention it to anybody. I didn't think I had a problem. I thought it was all of you that had a problem. It wasn't me. And
Right.
Like I said, my depression was that I just closed in my world. My world became smaller. Instead of going out and meeting people and hanging around with new people, all of a sudden I was sitting here in my house. My kids would go to school and they'd come home, and single father, and they'd come home and they'd say, Dad, you haven't moved all day. And I said, well, I got up to have something to drink.
And it's that social interaction too, isn't it, Kurt? I mean, connecting with other people and having interaction, and the more you restrict that or reduce that, that can also then feed into the depression and make it worse as well. Like, just literally not having anyone to talk to can cause depression. I know that when I was unwell, I had no one to talk to. And unlike you, when I went through my period of illness, which is obviously quite a lot different to your situation, but I really did rely on speaking to a psychologist because I felt that it was like a really good sounding board, that I felt I could dump all of my negative thoughts and feelings onto someone and not feel guilty about it because she was getting paid to listen to me. And it was just that opportunity to have that interaction, and then her perhaps ask a question that could potentially reframe it in more of a positive light and help kind of point me in a different direction all the time. And I just felt like I was such a burden that it was way too much to put that burden on family or friends. And I felt that the psychologist was the perfect person to be able to assist me with that. Yet in the past, I had, poo-pooed psychology, and, it been, sort of our family had said, oh, well, it's kind of frowned upon. What do you need to talk to someone about? But, it wasn't until I actually did it that it made a big difference. And I honestly believe I wouldn't have got through it without having that assistance. So, yeah, so as from my perspective, that was definitely something that was really valuable for me. And even now, like, if I was to have a major issue in my life or a concern, a big decision, I would seek some counseling, psychologist or counseling. And look, you do need to find a good one, someone that you can relate to, someone that you have good rapport, that you feel comfortable. If all of a sudden they're telling you, oh, well, I don't think that could work, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that, that probably may not be the right person for you, because my understanding is that a good psychologist is someone who asks you questions but doesn't actually tell you what to do. They're trying to help you resolve the issue for yourself and find your own way, but do it in the most positive, I guess, and constructive way, as opposed to saying, do this, don't do that, etc. So I think that's what I was always worried about in the past, that they would be just there to tell you what to do, and that's really not their job. Anyway, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to share that because hopefully that's valuable if somebody's listening and they might feel that could be something could help them there.
You bet. You know, like we were saying on the team call just a little bit ago, I think the main thing that pulled me out of where I was, pulled me kind of out of that dark hole that I was in, was all of you. You know,
Oh, really?
being involved with network marketing, I tell you, it's been such an important part of my life, because all of a sudden now I feel like I have family all over the world. I have friends in Italy and the UK. I have friends up in Norway. I have friends in Spain, down in Australia, New Zealand, all over, everywhere in the United States. I mean, I can't go 2 or 3 hours without, and I could drive every 2 hours and I could stop and see somebody that I know now in every direction.
Right. Having that connection.
My depression, really, you guys were my antidepressant.
Wow.
I like
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it's great. I mean, that's why I love being part of like Sizzle and the network, and just having those connections with people. You know, you can help someone and in turn it helps you, you know, and so, yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So, you know, Katie, our topic was what does it have to do with weight loss, right? And weight
Yeah,
gain.
we went off on a tangent.
And we went off a little bit there, but I think that was important. And so I put together a couple slides this afternoon and just sharing some information, weight gain and depression. And my name is Dr. Kirk Fisnick. Of course, Katie Larking's here with us tonight, and we're sharing a little bit of information on weight loss. Let me take and pull this out of the way here so these our pictures aren't interfering. You know, what's the relationship between depression and weight? And so I was reading up on a study when I was putting these slides together this afternoon, and University of Alabama, they confirmed that there's definitely a relationship with depression and abdominal obesity. There's a difference between abdominal obesity and just being fat. And they say that it has a link to increased risk of cancer and heart disease and all that. But what they found is that you can be fat but not be part of depression. But they found that this abdominal obesity a lot of times is related to depression, because the depression actually triggers cortisol to go up. And you've heard that before, haven't you, Katie? The whole thing with the cortisol?
Yeah, definitely. Like, that's the stress hormone.
The stress hormone. That's exactly it. So when they looked at the study, they did a 20-year study. I mean, holy cow. That's a long time to be looking at people. And what they found is that it definitely had a difference, because they found that the people that were depressed, that went into this thing depressed, they gained weight faster, and it was around the middle, the abdominal obesity, at faster rate than those people that weren't depressed when they came into it. They found that the people who came into the group and they were already overweight, they found that they were fat. They didn't gain the weight at the same rate that the depressed people were. So it's actually as far as like weight gain, they found that it's worse to be depressed than it is to be fat when you're talking about future weight gain.
Well, wouldn't this come back to the point that if you're feeling depressed, you're now maybe using food to deal with emotions?
Yeah.
And so therefore some people, not all, some people will eat more when they're depressed, perhaps?
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that. I got a couple slides on that. Yeah, great lead in for that, Katie. You know, when you talk about depression, I just really want to say, for those people that are on the call, if you're on the call and you feel like you're depressed, maybe you're depressed because you're listening to me, I don't know. But if you feel like you're depressed, I'll tell you, seek help. Like Katie was talking about earlier, don't do like I did. I mean, I did it the wrong way, but that's me. My kids know that I'll probably be dying before I go to the doctor for anything. And there's antidepressants. Sometimes people need antidepressants to get themselves out of the hole that they're in. We're going to talk about a few things that you can do with diet and things like that. But definitely, if you feel suicidal, call the suicide hotline. You got that down there in Australia, don't you, Katie?
Yeah, we've got, if there's triple O and there's feeling blue, I can't actually think of the actual names, but there is quite a number of things. If you feel depressed and you just type it into Google, it'll literally bring up a phone number. But of course, if you're feeling suicidal, you would call triple O, Kurt.
Triple O. Yeah, and that's exactly it. But do something. Don't just sit there and go, oh man, I remember about 2 weeks before Christmas, a friend of mine was talking about, I thought she was suicidal. So I called one of her family, and I said, hey, you should go talk to her. So if you recognize somebody that is having some issues, start recognizing it and start working with them. And it's a complex disease. We really don't know a lot of the causes and that. But all we can say is that it's one of the only diseases that can get so bad that it'll trigger you to take your own life. So it's serious.
Yeah, it's actually the leading cause of death, isn't it, Kurt?
It's in there.
Suicide.
Yeah, it's in there. Here's some causes of depression, right? Abuse. If you're physically abused, if you're mentally abused, that can cause problems. Medications, certain medications, that's one of the side effects. Antiviral medication called interferon. Corticosteroids can cause it. They can increase the risk of depression. There's a drug for acne that can cause depression. Personal conflict. And I always say, Katie, if you and I are having a conflict, I'm going to tell you that the first thing that we need to do is we need to talk. We need to settle it out right away.
Yeah, but we don't really have any conflict. That's why I was laughing.
Yeah, but I'm just saying if we ever did,
I know. Yeah, sure.
And that's the way to deal with it rather than keeping it internal, because with the internal, it's like this pressure builds up inside you find you explode.
I agree. I like the word over communicate, and I've heard Gary Vee use it, who's a thought leader, and he basically says, in any situation, the best thing is to over communicate, and that can help resolve it.
That's right. Sometimes just a death of a loved one. I mean, it could be your pet. I mean, I know when Chewy passes on, yeah, I'm gonna have some depression from that. I'm gonna miss the guy.
Yeah, that's a big one, Kurt, and that's a really big one because that can affect you for years. I know that when my father passed, there was definitely some depression, and it took 7 years until I could even look at a photo of him, and then 12 years before I could even talk about it properly.
Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you have a family history of depression, genetics can play an important role with risk. Major events in your life, like me, motorcycle wreck. Other times it can be a loss of a job, or it can be, moving to a new city, things like that. Personal problems, like I was talking about earlier, where my accident caused me to feel like I was on an island. I lived in Kirkville, and I was isolated. And it can be a coexistence with another illness and triggered by medical conditions. Substance abuse problems can cause major or clinical depression. I was just going to talk about serotonin, because as we talk about depression, we talk about serotonin, because serotonin is the chemical in the brain that makes you feel good. It's the major controller on your mood. But it's your own appetite suppressant. So it's a powerful brain chemical that shuts off your appetite. It makes you feel good. And so it's been studied for a long time over at MIT. They did some studies, and they found that it has to do with an amino acid called tryptophan. And we just finished the holidays. Where do you find tryptophan?
Turkey.
turkey, right? People sit around at holidays and they eat a bunch of food, they fall asleep because of the tryptophan in the turkey. But it's in steaks, it's in eggs, all these different things. But even though the tryptophan is in the food, it's actually the carbohydrates that digest into sugars, and that's what pushes the amino acid into the system, and it causes the serotonin to be released. So you need the protein, the amino acids to make the serotonin, but it's the sugar that causes the problem. And so what happens is that you get this feeling of fullness when you eat sugar. Have you ever gone to a restaurant with somebody and you sit there and they bring you some popcorn, or they bring you bread ahead of the meal? And you ever sat there and just ate the bread and all of a sudden the food shows up? Right?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people think, oh, I ate too much and now I can't eat. But really, in reality, it's because the serotonin that was released from the carbohydrate, what it did, it put the brakes on your appetite, made so you feel full, right? So we need to control those carbohydrates.
Yeah, definitely. So does that mean, Kurt, then if you have a very low or no protein diet, you would be much more likely to get depressed?
If you have a high protein diet or a low protein? I didn't.
No, if you're deficient in protein in your diet, would you be more likely to get depressed?
Oh yeah, because you're going to have a lack of serotonin, because you can't build those building blocks. And we started really noticing that as a physician. I got trained in working with depression way back in 1997, and we really started to notice a lot of people having problems after the 1960s and 1970s, because guess what happened then?
There was a change in the food industry?
Yeah, they started telling people low fat, don't eat red meat, and all of a sudden people start eating lots of carbohydrates.
Right, yeah.
So that's where part of the problem comes in.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've actually been having some conversations with some friends, and I said, do a protein count. Count how many grams of protein you just had for the last 3 days. And if you don't know, like, do it for the next 3 days. Keep a diary. And they said, well, how would I do that? And I said, well, you can download an app that you could, like, look it up, or, like, you can get these little booklets from the newsagent called Calorie Counter, and they've got a protein counter. Or, you know, if you're using something out of a packet, you can look at the packet. But if you actually do a count of your protein, because in previous talks we talked about the importance of protein, and the recommended minimum actually was 0.8 gram of protein per kilo of body weight, but they said it's much better to hit 1.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So for somebody who weighs around 55 kilos, and can't do the math that quick in my head, but you're really looking around 62 grams of protein per day. And I think some people would be surprised that when they did a count of their meals and added up how much protein they ate at breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, that they may actually be falling well short of the 62 grams and be, not having sufficient amount of protein. So, and the reason I know so much about that is because I've done competitions, bodybuilding competitions before, and, one of the key things we are trained to do is to really, we go actually the other way and go quite excessive with the protein, but the idea is that the reason for that is because you can maintain your muscle mass and you can control your body fat much better with a higher level of protein. And even for someone who I've spoken to who was a vegan bodybuilder, she even said that her minimum that she needs to hit each day, and she only weighs 50 kilos, is 60 grams of protein to maintain the muscle she does. And she says when she's in comp, she supplements and goes up to 80. So the people that are big, like the guys, they've got to hit much higher levels. But that's getting into the extreme because that's a sport. But just if we get back to just healthy living, the recommended was 1.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight.
For everybody who's listening, what is it, 2.4 kilos or 2.4 pounds in a kilo?
2.2 pounds to the kilo.
So when you're talking about 50 kilos, you're talking about 110 pounds.
Yes, something around there. Yep, that's right.
That's right. I haven't been 110 pounds since I was probably 6. a couple tips on getting your serotonin to actually work for you is when you're looking at sugar or starch or carbohydrates, eat them on an empty stomach, because that way it avoids the interference with the protein from your previous meal, and then wait 3 meals before you eat a meal with protein in it.
So is that true? Because I always wondered that, like combining carbs and proteins and that. Like I've even heard saying, oh, if you're going to have fruit, you better to have it on an empty stomach.
Well, now fruit's a little different because fruit doesn't turn into glucose right away. What we're talking about here, you got to read that it's the sugary or starchy carbohydrate. So we'd mainly be talking about things like pasta or bread or white rice.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Not talking about your complex carbohydrates. We're not talking about your fruits, and because that's a little different because it takes longer to digest. They aren't going to cause that spike of serotonin.
Right. Okay. Yes. It doesn't spike the glycemic index because of the way the sugar gets processed.
That's right. And so like my next tip was a high fiber type of carbohydrate, like we're talking about, like vegetables, celery, lettuce, things like that. They take a long time to digest. And so we don't recommend that for changing the mood or pre-meal appetite. If you eat a salad, it's not going to change. It's not going to make you feel full like a piece of bread would.
Exactly.
So eat that as part of your daily food plan for the nutritional value, not for the sugar spike that you're going to get from it. And in most studies that I read about, they say 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates is good. So you're saying 50 to 60 grams of protein and then 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates.
Yeah, that's well, yeah, when based on weight. Obviously, if you're a male and you're tall, you're going to need more.
That's right. And then when you're looking at supplements, nutritional supplements, take the amino acids like the sizzling. Take the ripped at a different time than when you're having your sugar or your starchy foods. So like right now, I'm drinking a ripped right now as we're talking on this call. Obviously, I'm not eating a piece of bread and I'm not eating a piece of birthday cake.
No, you're not.
They don't mix together, and that's what you want to learn. So as you get smarter in how you eat, and that's really what it is. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I said, we need to train people how to eat because people don't know how to eat.
Just like mixing everything together.
And you're going to have those meals like at Christmas. You're going to have those meals and you're going to cheat, and you're going to have problems from it. That's why the average person between Thanksgiving and Christmas, between Thanksgiving and New Year's, they gain 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Here's some things that I jotted down. Again, I'm going to put this up there, and I know Katie talked about you got to dial 000 and in Australia, and you can get on a national hotline. Here you can go on a toll-free number, 1-800-237-TALK. Call 911. Call the hospital if you're having problems. If you're suicidal, come on. Be serious about it. Make sure and you talk to people. And if you see somebody else, talk to them, talk to their family, and let them know. And a friend of mine posted this. She didn't know that I was doing a talk on depression and weight loss today, but she put this on her page, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna put that on my webinar tonight. So some alternative treatments. They found that people who didn't exercise had a 44% increased chance of becoming depressed compared to those people who exercise at least 1 to 2 hours a week. 1 to 2 hours a week, Katie.
Wow. Just amazing. Like now it makes sense, like in school why sports or physical education is like a mandatory subject.
That's right.
It is up to a certain point, and perhaps it should continue on being because of the benefits to the individual of just keeping some activity up.
That's right. And then they showed that light therapy. And folks, you don't have to go out and buy yourself a full spectrum light, although here in North Dakota where I'm at, we might need that. We might need that because, we just don't get a lot of sunshine. It's 0 or 10 below. Who's going to go sit outside in the lawn chair, right? But they say that you need, 20 minutes of full body sunshine.
Yeah, and Kurt, I am so pro for sunshine, but the biggest challenge, and maybe there might be some other women out there who feel the same as me, my concern is I don't like the sun on my skin because of age spots. And I know that sounds vain, but I'm being honest. And so that to me is a deterrent. But I do recognize that, getting sufficient vitamin D and sunlight on your skin is really important. But, even I've heard in talks before about aging and that the more sun exposure you have, the more you will accelerate the aging of the skin. So I guess there's a balance between, and I've kind of gone off on a tangent again, I guess there's a balance between sun exposure and, how it affects your skin. And I guess, obviously you can cover your face and expose your legs. And for men and for most people, they probably would disregard my comment altogether because they're not concerned about it. But, isn't that odd, though, that sun damages the skin, yet you need the vitamin D is essential to health? I also find that kind of perplexing. It's required for optimum health, yet it actually damages your skin in excess, I guess. So what's the deal with that?
Right. Well, when we're looking at the light therapy, remember what I said, 20 minutes.
Right.
So you're not going to cause sunspots, and you can divide it up. You can do 5 minutes now, 5 minutes later, 5 minutes later, 5 minutes later. And so you're certainly not going to get sunburnt or increase your risk of sunspots from the UV radiation doing it that way.
Right. So there's a level. And I also read that if somebody is, if their background, if they've got like dark skin, they actually need more sunlight because the UV light is harder to penetrate the skin. And so they actually have to spend more time. They're more susceptible to the vitamin D deficiency. That's
right. That's right. And then the next thing is omega-3 fatty acids. If you're low on omega-3s, you're going to be more prone to having depression. So make sure you're getting enough omega-3s. Man, I'll tell you what, Katie, I take my Super Omega Plus every day. I love it.
I know. I take mine every day too. I love it. And Milo gets some too.
Yeah. Chewy doesn't like the Super Omega. He doesn't like the flavor of it. So I actually have a different one for him. Yeah. Yeah. And then optimize your vitamin D levels. And like Katie said, getting outside is probably the best way of getting vitamin D. But buy a vitamin D supplement and it'll help. It's been shown to help. Magnesium.
And Kurt, just to back on the vitamin D, this is a really, really important one. I'm just going to bring up another point here. It's really important to have your levels checked by your doctor. They can actually do, it is fairly common to request a vitamin D test when you're visiting your doctor. And quite often people might be shocked and find their levels are low, particularly if they're working in an office and they're indoors for a lot of the time. And to continue on with low levels or deficiency in vitamin D can definitely be a big problem, can't it, Kurt, to causing issues. I know that vitamin D levels are even linked to cholesterol.
Right. Definitely. Your vitamin D is so important with all these aspects, with your hormones and with the cholesterol, the good cholesterol, because we need, if you didn't have any cholesterol, you'd die. Right.
So vitamin D is really key.
Yep. And what products do we have vitamin D in?
Balance D. We've got some vitamin D in the Spectramax, obviously the Encompass 360. I believe there's a tiny bit in the calcium K2, although it's mostly calcium. What other products has got D, Kurt?
That's the ones that I would have said too. And there might be some in the Sizzling, but in those products for sure. And then, like I always tell people, when you take a look at a company like Sizzle, we've got a lot of great products, but we don't have everything. And so like a product like vitamin D, you can just go online on Amazon. You can order yourself some vitamin D and take a little bit extra on top of your Sizzle products.
Yeah, because actually I did hear Tom talk in a previous call, and he mentioned that a really good optimum range for vitamin D consumption. And he then said that you get that if you consume this, this, and this, because they've actually, Sizzle have taken into account that you're consuming multiple products. So when I've actually looked into it, and I'm sure you have, Kurt, too, there's not a lot of overlap. A lot of the products are standalone, and the ones that do have overlap, they've taken into consideration that you may be taking like the Encompass 360 and the Spectramax.
That's right. So then magnesium. And Katie, guess what new product has magnesium?
H2!
Woohoo! Right?
It's got magnesium.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, so we got the Sizzle H2. It's got a ton of magnesium in it, and then the Brain Vitality has a really good magnesium, and
Yeah, and you've got on the slide here, Kurt, magnesium improves mild to moderate depression. The other thing the magnesium really can help with is like musculoskeletal stuff. It can help with like pain relief and that. And you'd know as a chiropractor, you probably would use it quite a bit in the past.
Yep, I use it a lot with people that had degenerative arthritis. You bet.
Right.
And then B vitamins. B vitamins, I'll tell you, B vitamins are so important for nerve health. Well, right now here in the United States, they say that we have almost an epidemic of vitamin B12 deficiency.
Wow. I mean, as soon as you said B vitamins, Kurt, straight away the first thought in my mind was I want to have a fire and iced tea.
That's right.
Fire and ice, because it's got so much B vitamins in it, right through the whole spectrum of the B vitamins. And actually, I noticed that when I have that as a drink, I feel a mood boost. And I would say it's probably exactly like the comment you've got on the slide. It can assist, it potentially can assist and support depression. And so, maybe for me, it does help with the mood, and perhaps it would probably most likely for other people too.
And guess what product it mixes good with?
Yes. So H2, you were saying this morning that you mixed your sachet of fire and ice with your sachet of H2, and you said it tasted fantastic and you felt fantastic.
Oh, I'll tell you, Katie, I actually found when I mixed my H2 with my fire and ice, it actually made both products taste better.
Wow.
I like it. That's how I'm going to do it every time. So now I'm getting my B vitamins. So I'm going to call it my antidepressant drink.
Wow. And it'd make a really good summer drink too, Kurt. You could like do some crushed ice and mix the two together and have it in a big glass. And then you're having you feel really good.
I like it. I like that. And then on top of it, I know that I'm going to be helping with a lot of other things with the Super H2. And then meditation is so good. And there's a technique called EFT that you can go online. You can learn about EFT. And they found that with college students, they found with 4 90-minute sessions, they showed that they had significantly less depression than the control group when they evaluated them within a 3-week period of time. So just 4 times over a 3-week period of time, they saw that they had significantly decreased amounts. Behavioral therapy helps with it. And then sugar, like we were talking about, lowering your sugar levels really helps out, and it helps prevent that anxiety, depression over time.
Great information.
Isn't that cool to just be able to know that there's things that you can do naturally to limit your risk of developing it. And folks, I just want to say this is that as we're talking about depression, again, it's a serious thing. It's one of the only diseases that I know about that can get so bad that you'll take your own life because of it. And so if you feel that way, if you feel like you're having a problem, don't just depend on yourself. Talk to somebody about it. And if you feel like you're contemplating suicide, talk to somebody about it. Call the suicide hotline in your area, in your country. And for those of you that are been on the webinar, obviously you've been on the webinar, you're reading the last slide. And the natural therapies, they work well, but don't substitute this for medical attention. If you suspect it, again, get a hold of people. And I think that we covered the topic pretty good, right? Katie, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I think it's pretty thorough. I think that it's good to share this information because, it might give someone some insight, or they just pick up a few tips. It certainly helps me doing these calls. I get off the call and think, wow, I could do this, or I should do this. I could try that. And I really like it.
Yeah, I like it. Partly for that, because I always learn something. You bring up stuff and I bring up stuff. But I like it too because of the fact that it gets me to rehash it in my head.
Yeah. Yes, it does. To revisit it and to rethink it, and you then might look at it or, take it from a different perspective than you normally would.
That's right. Well,
So,
Katie,
Kurt, before we finish, are we giving something away?
well, I was just kind of thinking about that. I was thinking that, what do I want to give away today? I think I'm going to give away some coffee because the coffee's got chaga in it, and chaga has been used for years in China and Russia as a natural antidepressant. Did you know that?
Wow. Well, they're really big into the natural therapies, so it's no surprise.
That's right. So I'll pick a number. I'll pick a number, and we'll have the lucky winners get to win some coffee.
Well, so this is just great. So not only do you get the opportunity to learn some new information, you have the opportunity to potentially win a prize. So please add some smiley faces, any icons, a comment, insights, anything that you thought was helpful. Pop in your comment below. If you're watching the recording, do that. And we'd love to read your comments, and maybe you might be the lucky winner.
All right. Well, Katie, thanks for being here again with us this week. I just appreciate you every week. I can't
Thanks,
express
Ben.
it.
I appreciate you too.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Bye.